The Tonight Show with the Johnny Carson wasn't just a late-night show, it was a cultural phenomenon. For 3 decades, it captivated audiences and cemented Johnny Carson as a television legend. A-list stars like Joan Rivers and Wayne Newton graced the stage, delivering unforgettable moments that kept viewers coming back for more. But behind the laughter and charm, not everything was as polished as it seemed. Carson's infamous temper sometimes spilled over, creating backstage drama that occasionally made its way into the public. In one particularly shocking incident, a guest pushed things too far, earning a lifetime ban from the show for crossing a line even the king of late night couldn't ignore. From humble beginnings to global stardom, John William Carson, born on October 23, 1925 in Corning, Iowa, grew up in small Midwestern towns before his family settled in Norfolk, Nebraska. Even as a child, Carson showed a knack for entertainment. A chance discovery of a book on magic at age 12 ignited his passion for performance, and before long, he was astonishing family members with card tricks. His mother, recognizing his enthusiasm, sewed him a cape, and by age 14, he was performing as the Great Carson, earning a modest $3 per show. Carson's early ambition and sense of adventure led him to Hollywood after high school, though his journey took an unexpected turn when he was fined $50 for impersonating a midshipman. The story, often retold, only added to his legend. In 1943, he joined the U.S. Navy during World War II, training as an officer under the V-12 Navy College program. Commissioned as an ensign, he served aboard the USS Pennsylvania, where he was responsible for decoding encrypted messages. Surprisingly, his military career also included an undefeated 151 record in amateur boxing, with most of his matches taking place on the ship. One of Carson's most memorable moments in the Navy came when he performed a magic trick for Secretary of the Navy James Forrestal. When asked if he planned to stay in the Navy, Carson replied that he intended to become a magician. Forrestal challenged him to prove his skills, and Carr's quick-witted performance left an impression. It was a moment, one that confirmed his ability to entertain even the most serious of audiences. After the war, Carson seized the educational benefits offered by the military, enrolling at the University of Nebraska-Lincoln. Initially majoring in journalism with dreams of becoming a comedy writer, he soon shifted to speech and drama. Realizing his true calling was radio, his college thesis, How to Write Comedy for Radio, showcased his analytical approach to humor, featuring taped skits and explanations of comedic techniques. The project allowed him to graduate in just 3 years with a degree in radio and speech, along with a minor in physics. Carson's early broadcasting career took off in 1950 when he joined WOW! And WOW! TV in Omaha, Nebraska. His morning television program, The Squirrel's Nest, showcased his sharp wit and penchant for satire. One standout segment involved interviewing pigeons on the courthouse roof, humorously exposing local political corruption. His ability to blend comedy with current events set him apart, and he soon found himself hosting local events, rubbing shoulders with some of the very figures he lampooned on air. A fortunate connection through the wife of a spoofed politician, L.E.D. Carson, to Los Angeles in 1951, where he landed a role at KXD, a CBS-owned television station. There he launched Carson Cellar. 1951 to 1953, a low-budget but cleverly written sketch comedy show that caught the attention of established comedians. Among his admirers was Red Skelton, who hired Carson as a writer in 1953. Carson's big break came unexpectedly the following year, when Skelton knocked himself unconscious just before a live broadcast. Stepping in at the last minute, Carson proved his ability to think on his feet and entertain an audience under pressure. Jack Benny, another comedy legend, recognized Carson's talent and invited him onto his show in 1955. Carson, imitating Benny's mannerisms, jokingly accused the veteran comedian of copying him, a moment Benny later recalled when predicting Carson's bright future in comedy. Throughout the 1950s, Carson hosted multiple shows, including the game show Earn Your Vacation 1954 and the variety program The Johnny Carson Show. The career-changing show in the early 1960s, late-night television was still finding its footing. NBC's Tonight Show had launched in 1954 with Steve Allen, a sharp-witted host who set the foundation for what would become the quintessential American talk show. When Allen left in 1957, Jack Parr took the reins, bringing a more personal and sometimes unpredictable style to the program. By 1962, however, Tonight needed a new host, and NBC had its eyes on a rising star. Johnny Carson. Carson had already made a name for himself on Who Do You Trust, where his humor and charm made him one of television's most sought-after personalities. Yet when NBC first offered him the job, he hazes. It tated the idea of filling 105 minutes every night interviewing celebrities and keeping the nation entertained seemed daunting. Legendary figures like Bob Newhart, Jackie Gleason, Groucho Marx, and Joey Bishop had already turned down the role. But as NBC persisted, Carson finally gave in, signing on in early 1962. With 6 months left on his ABC contract, Carson couldn't take over immediately. Instead, a rotating cast of guest hosts, including Marx, M.V. Griffin, Jerry Lewis, and Donald O'Connor, kept Tonight running until Carson made his long-awaited debut on October 1st. 1962. At first, the transition wasn't easy. Carson had doubts about his ability to carry the show, and his first year was filled with growing pains. But as he settled into the role, he began to redefine late-night television, blending humor, WI, and a keen ability to make even the dullest guests shine. Billy Wilder once said of Carson, by the simple law of survival, Carson is the best. He enchants the invalids and the insomniacs, as well as the people who have to get up at dawn. He is the Valium and the noodle of a nation. No matter what kind of dead asses are on the show, he has to make them funny and exciting. He has to be their nurse and their surgeon every night. In front of millions of people, he has to do the salto mortale. What's more, he does it without a net. Carson wasn't just hosting a show, he was shaping an institution. When The Tonight Show launched under his leadership, it took on a refined structure that would set the standard for late-night television. Ed McMahon, Carson's longtime partner from Who Do You Trust, joined as his announcer and sidekick, delivering the now iconic introduction. Here's Johnny. S.K. Henderson led the NBC orchestra, providing musical interludes that gave the show a distinctive rhythm. Carson's monologue, a nightly ritual, opened each show with sharp topical humor. If a joke fell flat, he had a knack for recovering with a self-deprecating quip. One of his go-to moves was a playful soft shoe dance to T for Two, cued by the band, which instantly turned a misfire into a laugh. Another trick was pulling the microphone close and dead panning. Attention Kmart shoppers, clean up in aisle, for his effortless charm and ability to improvise made even awkward moments feel entertaining. A signature of Carson's monologue was his phantom golf swing, a small relaxed gesture that became an enduring trademark. Guest hosts would occasionally parody it. Bob Newhart, for instance, once minded rolling a bowling ball. Instead, the show's theme music, Johnny's theme, was composed by Paul Anka, adapted from his earlier song Toot Sight. Before taking over The Tonight's Show, Carson wrote lyrics for it, though they were never used, which entitled him to 50% of the performance royalties. That theme remained unchanged from Carson's first show in 1962 to his farewell broadcast on May 22, 1992, originally filmed at NBC's headquarters in New York's 30 Rock Roller Plaza. The Tonight Show made a major move on May 1, 1972, relocating to Burbank, California. The shift placed the show closer to Hollywood, making it easier to book top-tier celebrity guests. As Carson's influence grew, so did his control over the format. In 1980, he cut back his hosting duties to 4 nights per week, leaving Mondays to a rotating roster of guest hosts. Episodes were recorded in Burbank at 5:30 p.m. and fed via satellite to the Eastern and Central time zones at 11:30 p.m. Eastern. Pacific time viewers received a later feed at 11:30 p.m. their time. By the late 1970s, The Tonight Show, starring Johnny Carson, was more than just a late-night program. It was a cornerstone of American television. Carson's influence on comedy, celebrity culture, and broadcasting was undeniable, and his impact extended far beyond the studio. In April 1979, after 17 years as the face of The Tonight Show, Johnny Carson sent shock waves through the industry by announcing his departure. At the time, the show was more than just a late-night staple. It was a financial powerhouse, generating an estimated 177% of NBC's pre-tax profits. His immense value to the network sparked swift negotiations, and by May 1980, he agreed to a new 3-year deal that redefined both his role and the show itself. The runtime was trimmed from 90 minutes to 60, and Carson himself reduced his hosting duties to just 3 nights a week, a shift that extended Tom Snyder's Tomorrow by 30 minutes to fill the gap. Yet even with a lighter schedule, Carson remained television's biggest star. To accommodate his reduced presence, NBC introduced a lineup of guest hosts, with Joan Rivers serving as the permanent guest host from 1983 to 1986. When she left, the show returned to rotating guest hosts featuring comedy heavyweights like George Carlin and Gary Shandling. By 1987, Jay Leno secured the role exclusively, leveraging his willingness to keep his fee low for more bookings. As Carson continued scaling back, NBC kept audiences engaged with the best of Carson on Tuesdays, airing classic reruns that highlighted his timeless appeal. Despite working fewer hours, Carson's influence and earnings only grew. By the mid-1970s. He was the highest-paid television personality, bringing in an astonishing $4 million per year, equivalent to nearly $193 million. Today, Hollywood came calling, offering him major film roles, but he repeatedly turned them down. He passed on the Thomas Crown Affair, leaving the part to Steve McQueen, and declined a role in Blazing Saddles, which went to Gene Wilder. Even Martin Scorsese personally approached him for The King of Comedy, offering him a role opposite Robert De Niro, but Carson walked away, and the part ultimately went to Jerry Lewis. Carson's legacy was solidified in 1987, when he was honored with a Peabody Award marking his 25th anniversary on The Tonight Show. The board's praise captured his impact, an American institution, a household word, and the most widely quoted American. Even as his schedule shrank, his presence loomed larger than ever, cementing his place as a legend in television and comedy. Celebs who have been banned from The Tonight Show for decades. The Tonight Show wasn't just a talk show, it was the